Hello, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. This is your commissioner, and it's podcast time, which means I've got Big Nolski with me. Noel, how are you doing?
I've got myself a double rye poured, and it's a 4-day weekend, so I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
That sounds great. I have myself mm, a 1.5 of scotch. That banknote that I had drank in a different podcast, and is absolutely splendid. So, yes, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Let's go on to this podcast and kick everything off, starting with you should be happy about this, Noel. MVT and MVP go to you. You had a fantastic game against Molly, who did not have well, she did have a fantastic game, actually. I should correct myself. The sad part is you're getting the MVT award because you're the most valuable team. You got 159 points. A lot of that was because of Le'Veon Bell, who got you 52 points. He was an absolute beast. He rushed 28 times for 146 yards, 1 touchdown, and it was just really good. So Molly, however, got 154 points, which you say, oh, no, that's no good. She lost. What really sucks about that is she earned herself the EV award, the Everybody But award. We haven't handed this award out very frequently in the Mile High Champions League, and it just sucks. So sorry, Molly. Great game. At least you put up a lot of points, which will help you if there's people nipping at your heels in the playoffs as we head into the Rivalry week. You are 7-4, so if Redneck's Delight or your fiance or Brandon or myself are able to secure a win, we'll be 7-5. Assuming you, let's just play hypotheticals. Assuming you lose and you go 7-5, all those extra points you scored today will really help you out battling the rest of us who would be 7-5. If you win, you're automatically in, so it's an irrelevant thing. But if you lose, those points that you scored today are actually still quite a good thing to have. So we're going to go now. We're going to skip the shithead of the week. I will say, Noel sent me a text message of, oh God, Green Bay on Sunday Night Football last week played the Washington Redskins and was just destroyed. You know what the final score was, Noel?
Was it 42-24? Did they put up another touchdown? I can't remember. I kind of turned it off.
It is, I just looked it up, 42-24, and it's a video of Dan Snyder, the owner of the Washington Redskins, dancing, which it sounds innocuous enough, but this man is the epitome of what's wrong with America and what's wrong with the NFL. He's just a major douchebag. So we're just going to skip shit out of the week. Just know that it went to Dan Snyder. We're also going to stop Huddle Up for the rest of the year because the podcasts are just going to get shorter and shorter as the playoffs go with fewer and fewer teams to analyze. So with that in mind, let's start analyzing. Let's go to the review of the week, starting with the first game, which is Kenfield versus Brandon. Brandon needed a big win, and guess what? He got it. 124-92. Really, speaking of the Redskins, on the back of Kirk Cousins, who threw for 375 yards, 3 TDs, no picks. I mean, this guy's actually pretty good. He's only thrown 1 interception in the last 4 weeks, and that's pretty damn good. Jay Ajayi, still not too bad. He's got 18 points for him. He's climbed to the top 10 with a good performance this week. Sucks that A.J. Green put up a big fat goose egg. We haven't seen a goose egg in a while, but he is out. And so that's no good for him. T.Y. held down a good game. Fitzgerald had a good game, and the Giants did as well. Kenfield, not too bad of a week. He had 3 single-digit games, including his kicker, which is not too bad, except that single digit was a single digit. You got him 1 point, so that's really not that helpful. Odell Beckham Jr., just like DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know. He had a really rough week this week, as did Hopkins. I think that he's been pretty good, I have to say that, but he's been kind of hot and cold. Like, he had a 49-point game in week 6 and a 9-point game in this week, and then a 25-point game last week, and then a 5-point game. So he's pretty good. I mean, he's top 5. I'd still own him on my team, but he's kind of when he gets bad, the Giants get bad, they get really bad. Eli Manning doesn't just throw like 200 yards. He throws 200 yards and like 5 interceptions. So not a great week for Beckham, not a great week for Kenfield, but nonetheless, good game by Brandon. That was certainly enough to give him enough to put him in the contention for the winner circle here. So that's it of that game. Noel, why don't you go ahead and tackle Jake's protein shakes in my game?
All right. Well, just another solid win for you, Mike, and another kind of disheartening loss for Tyler here. I'm blown away that Ben Roethlisberger against a lowly Cleveland defense only put up about 13 points. That's ridiculous. And then Doug Martin, 19 points against a stout Kansas City defense, pretty good. Edelman had a good game for what he's been doing this season, 23 points. Delaney Walker, quite good game. Jonathan Stewart, disappointing. Ryan Matthews, as you saw with Kenfield's team, just all the running backs for Philadelphia got shut down last week against Seattle. The lone bright spot, I would say, for Tyler's team, it is Tyler's team, that would be the Vikings defense, who just teed the fuck off against Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer has not been the same as he was since he's been the same guy was last year. He melted in the playoffs and just cannot stop turning the ball over. And that offensive line just can't keep people off of him. As for your team, Mike, obviously the guy who carried your water this week was Tom Brady with a 4-touchdown game against the lowly San Francisco 49ers. Quiet but productive game, I would say, for Ty Montgomery. You'll take the 10 points when you can get them. Jordy Nelson, another disappointing game. Greg Olson, respectable 7. Jamison Crowder, very just under the radar, having a great season for you, Mike. And as I said, I liked the pickup of the Dolphins defense against the very uncreative, although Jared Goff led LA Rams. So, nothing flashy about your win here, Mike, but helps you stay in the hunt for the playoffs, and unfortunately puts a little bit makes it more difficult, as you'll get to later, about Tyler's playoff hopes. But good, solid, close game. But Mike, I'm sure you're happy for the win.
I am happy about that, and not to relish in your pain, Tyler, but it's I would call that a Honda Civic win. It really wasn't flashy, to borrow your words, Noel, but it got me from A to B, and I'll take it. So let's go now to Charlie and Vanessa. Vanessa had a pretty darn good week, and boy, did she need it, because as we'll talk about at the end, the playoff pictures, she's been needing to get the wins, and she's been getting them. She's on a 2-game winning streak and still within a breath of the playoffs if she wins this next week. Charlie just had one of those games where Isaiah Crowell got him 8 points, and he's not that great of a player, but I mean, he's kind of an under the radar guy like Jamison Crowder. He's been scoring on average 18 points a week. So to get 10 less than the average really hurt him. Crabtree, boy, he has been a fantastic sleeper, and except for the last 2 weeks, put up 3 points on 5 yards on 3 catches. So not that great. TJ Yeldon, the running back situation, really everything. Jacksonville is struggling this year, which is not too unexpected, but it's certainly frustrating. I can relate to that with Charlie, because I have Allen Robinson, and just watching the Jaguars play is, I'm sure, like when you watch the Texans play and you curse the name Bill O'Brien when he just screws around with your running back Lamar Miller, it can be frustrating. So I can understand Charlie's frustration with the loss this week. Now, congratulations are in order to Vanessa. She had another fantastic week, and I think what I'm most impressed about was the gambles she took. I mean, Antonio Brown, far and away, is her celebrity player. She paid $71 for him, and she's getting her money's worth. He's the number 1 wide receiver. Travis Kelce, same thing. He's the number 4 tight end, and he's been worth his salt. What I'm talking about here is the acquisition of Terrell Pryor. That was, I think, inspired because nobody would have expected to do as well as he's doing, and he's top 12 now, which makes him a wide receiver 1 position, and she's got him filled in the slot, so she's been doing well with him. The other one was DeMarco Murray. Everyone thought, after he left Dallas, he's no good. He wouldn't play for the Eagles, and he sucked there. Guess who's the number 1 running back? DeMarco Murray, 32 points a week. That was also a fantastic acquisition for her. She only spent $19 on him. $19 to get you 32 points a week. That's a hell of a return on your investment. And then finally, the most interesting one was Dak Prescott, because it was uncertain at the time if Tony Romo was going to come back, and it's kind of just thinking Dak was going to be in there for maybe 4 or 5 games, maybe tops 6. And, he would just kind of fill the slot. And then whenever Romo was feeling better, he would come back. But he has earned the right to be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. And I applaud Vanessa for picking him up. And I applaud Dak Prescott for the tenacity and the ability he's shown to get the lead quarterback position on one of the most awesome, and I almost said respected, but because of Jerry Jones, that's kind of a stretch, but awesome team. And he's only turned the ball over twice this year in the air. He only has 2 interceptions. He has 3 fumbles, but that happens. I mean, that's really, you're expected to turn the ball over, but not that. I mean, that infrequently is pretty amazing. So congratulations, Vanessa, on a good win. Sorry about your loss, Chuck. You guys are still both in the hunt for everything. Unlike this next game, Noel, just please be gentle. Be gentle on Courtney.
I will, of course. This before I get to Josh's team here, this has just kind of been, this game is indicative of what has bitten Courtney just all year long. Whether it be, she made the right call in my opinion as far as starting Tyrod Taylor over Derek Carr. I think it was a better matchup, but somehow it just she seems to be snake bitten where the right matchup ends up being the wrong call. Todd Gurley has just massively underperformed. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm fairly certain she paid top dollar. Like Ben paid for Ezekiel Elliott, I paid for Lamar Miller and Le'Veon Bell, and he just 21 points this week. That's very good, but I would doubt he's topped that more than maybe twice this season. Kelvin Benjamin, who is supposed to be her stud wide receiver, 8 points. Jason Witten, respectable 8 points. Randall Cobb, 12 points out of him this season is good, which is ridiculous. And before she had to start Kenny Britt with Demaryius Thomas out. What really just, I think, it surprises me is the Eagles' defense started off the year solid. They were pressuring the quarterback. They were forcing turnovers, but these last few weeks, they just can't seem to get home with their guys up front, and it's showing how bad they are in coverage. So what probably she was hoping for, maybe a 12-point game out of her defense, she got 3.5. Courtney, we've all been there before where just nothing you try seems to works, but it wasn't for lack of effort, and certainly it wasn't for a bad management. It was just simply, I think, a snake-bitten year for you. Now over to Josh's team. This could have been an even bigger win for him had DeAndre Hopkins not been absolutely fucking robbed of a huge touchdown catch and run. I don't know if you guys watched the game on Monday night. I did because I wanted to see what Lamar Miller was doing, but it was kind of a shit show in officiating. DeAndre Hopkins caught a pass, and apparently the line judge thought he ran out of bounds, so he blew the play dead, even though when you zoom in over and over and over again, you see that he did not. And because the play was unreviewable, they just had to let it stand. But he got a much-needed win here and 32 points out of Rashad Jennings, which was probably his, I would say, the inspired start of the week for him. Another solid game from Drew Brees. Old man Frank Gore just plugging along, getting all those points. And he should have another big week this week with Andrew Luck being out with a concussion. The only real problem point here was Ladarius Green, I think, made maybe his first start of the season and put up that old, horrible goose egg. So solid win from Josh, keeping contention. Courtney, my condolences, and I guess good luck in the consolation bracket. I don't know. I'm trying to be nice. It's just, I know that there's no good way to hear you've been fucked by the fantasy gods this season.
It sucks. It feels horrible. It's painful, but you're absolutely right. And Todd Gurley, $72 in the draft. So you'd expect a lot more. That's back in his heyday, Adrian Peterson type money, and he would give you what DeMarco Murray is putting up, 30+ points a week. So that she has been absolutely fucked by the fantasy gods. Now, granted, in her defense, not just as her husband, in her defense, I mean, raising a child, as Larson and Brandon will attest to, as they just had a child recently, not excluding, of course, Tyler and holy shit, Charlie, who had children earlier this year. But sorry, Charlie, I did not sleep much last night because of my child, so I'm a little brain retarded right now. So it definitely takes time to do that, obviously. So it takes a little time away mentally from your mental abilities. So she's a little bit spread thin, and I think her fantasy team suffered as a result. But that's enough. She's out. She's out of the playoffs. She's gonna just have to focus on next year. So let's go. Speaking of focusing on the next thing, to your game, Noel. As we kind of talked about earlier, we'll just be brief here. You're on a 3-game winning streak. When I said that when you were 2-6, that you needed to win, well, you're like, well, I think I'll listen to Mike. He's pretty handsome. So you've won your last 3 games. I'm assuming you said that. I don't know. It was kind of funny because you had a somewhat dichotomous game here. Le'Veon Bell put up 52, 32 from Lamar Miller, 29.6 from Russell Wilson, and then 2 points from Martellus Bennett, and 7 points from Devontae Adams. So you had these players who had great games, and you had these players that are like, oh, shit. Anything Green Bay, I think, right now is kind of toxic, so it's not too unexpected that Devontae Adams didn't perform well. But even still, thank God for Le'Veon Bell for you, because for your sake, he did very well. For Molly's sake, not so much. You games where she's like, oh, yeah, I could ride David Johnson to a victory, but that is the most frustrating thing, the EB award, I think, because you're like, fuck, I want to beat everyone else. But you just go down in flames. So David Johnson, 48 points. What a game. Now, she was held back by Cameron Brate, who hasn't been too bad this year. It hasn't been overly amazing. He's the 11th ranked tight end overall, which is only putting up about 10 points a week. But, that's not bad. That's starter worthy. Latavius Murray had a pretty good game, 16, as did Terrence West, also putting up 16. The Lions D against Jacksonville, we're just talking about how shitty Jacksonville is, 28.5 points. That's fantastic. Where she suffered, besides Cameron Brate, was Cam Newton. I guess people named Cameron, they're just sucking last week. He only put up 16 points. That was, besides the Tampa Bay game where he didn't play and put up 0, his worst game. That was his worst game of the season. So had he actually performed anywhere close to his 24-point average, Molly would have walked away with this win. But as we talked about in the previous review of Courtney's game, the fantasy gods have a very cruel sense of humor. They're like, hey, let's let David Johnson get 48 points, but let's not have her win. And let's make David Johnson make it look like he's going to get the MVP award. And then at the last second, Le'Veon Bell will pull ahead. Because guess what? If there was a EB award for MVP, it would be David Johnson, because he was the second best player this week. So Molly, if you want to break stuff and throw a chair through a window, I can't blame you. That was a tough loss this week, but you're still well in it. You're the only 7-4 team, so if you can win this week, you're in. And there's a lot that would have to go wrong for you not to make the playoffs this year. So sorry about your loss, Molly. Sorry about the EB award, but congratulations all on your win. You're still in the fight, which we'll talk about later. And let's look at the last review game of the week.
All right. Well, Ben has secured himself a playoff spot here, and it's with just another solid performance out of his team. Matthew Stafford had kind of a disappointing game for him this season with 15.8, but Ezekiel Elliott, not a barn burner like we're used to in recent weeks, but 26 points, you'll take it every time. 12 points from Brandon Cook, 6 points from Dennis Pitta, of all people, 28 for Garrett Blunt, 16 from Spencer Ware, and the Patriots defense putting up an awesome 22 points for Ben. So great game for Ben. And this was a very close win with Larson coming in at 131 points. And as we've pointed out repeatedly, what do the fantasy gods have against him this season? Marcus Mariota, 31 points. I think he was undrafted to start this season. He's started for different teams, and because of injuries and just underperforming, Larson's had to do some very crafty management here. LaShawn McCoy looked like he may have been done for this season. He left the game, I believe, before the end of the first half. He still put up 15 points. Good news is he's supposed to be back next week. He just had a hurt thumb. Smart start, Michael Thomas. When you're down with what Larson's dealing with, 11 points, you'll take it. I mean, he had a relatively big game from his tight end, who is now hurt and out for the rest of the season. Theo Riddick, good game. Jordan Howard, good game. Rams defense, really good game at 18 points. But, as it is with, with most of Ben's opponents this season, it just wasn't enough, no matter how deft of management Larson has shown. So, good win, Ben. But again, I know there's no such thing as a moral victory and a loss. But Larson, again, mad respect for what you've been doing, man.
Seriously, he's if there was an award for which I'm the commissioner, I suppose I could create one. But if there was an award existing for outstanding management, it would go to Larson this year. So take a pseudo award from your commissioner for how well you've managed your team, because certainly you've been. Everyone has their struggles with fantasy. Everyone does, whether it's injuries or bye weeks or underperformance or what have you. But you've been able to manage that better than I think anybody else in the season this year. And that's indicative in your record, because it shows that the both sides of the coin there. You're 5-6, which means you're still in the hunt for the playoffs, but you're 5-6. You still have a losing record. It's because of all the shit that's happened to you so far this season. So congratulations, Larson, on just running a great team this year. Unfortunately, it just hasn't been enough to really get you all that far ahead in the playoff hunt, but you're still in it. You're still in it. So let's go on now that the review's over to the preview. Funny enough, there are no bye weeks this week. And I guess it's because it's Thanksgiving week, so everyone's got to play, but no bye weeks. There's bye weeks next week, but not this week, which is funny because there's very rarely – I can't remember the last time there's been a bye week and a playoff week. So be careful if you make the playoffs who you're starting, and you might have to hit the waiver wire. But before we go any further with the playoff picture, let's do a preview of the upcoming week, because boy howdy, this being Wednesday night, as you know, that's when Noel and I record our shows. The Rivalry week starts tomorrow, and it starts with the Littleton Spartans and the Parker Rams, the Injun Nerd Bowl. Now, both of these guys need a win. Brandon is tied for first in the Mountain Conference at 6-5, but Larson is right behind him at 5-6. So if he gets a win and puts up more than 67 points, he's going to be able to surpass Brandon. Maybe not win the conference, because he has to. I also have to lose as well for him to do that. But it's possible. It is possible. So he's still well in the hunt here. Looking at the line, it's challenging to say that it's going to be Larson has that. Let me just say it this way, because I'm just stuttering fool right now. Larson has his work cut out for him. The line favors Brennan by about 7 points, 6.8, and his projected total is 143 without a starting wide receiver. So normally AJ Green's been putting up 19 points, which would boost Brandon to the 160 range projected, but he's now projected to get 0. I think what's skewing this is the fact that Jay Ajayi is projected to get 37 points. Now, San Francisco's defense sucks. Pretty much everything about San Francisco's defense sucks, and their football team in general. They are the worst run defense. But I would be shocked if he would put up 37 points, because you have to figure they know Jay Ajayi is good, and Ryan Tannehill is very, very mediocre. So I'm guessing they're probably going to do I don't know what their base scheme is, but they're probably going to do a 3-4, I would argue, to put more people in the box to prevent him from running, forcing Tannehill to throw, and hopefully forcing some interceptions on. I mean, hopefully if you're a San Francisco 49ers fan. So I think that Brandon has a lot to like about his team this week. Larson, there is plenty to like there as well, but with LaShawn McCoy, who's been shady as fucking really good this year, questionable, as is Theo Riddick, one of his pickups from another injured player. He's really got his work cut out for him. Looking at the defensive pairings, Larson has a much harder defensive pairings. The only two easy defenses he's facing are Zach Ertz facing the Green Bay defense for his tight end, and then the Chargers going against Houston in the defense special teams. Everyone else he's facing top 16, with them being 14th at quarterback, 12th at running back, 13th at wide receiver, 16th at the flex for McCoy, 4th for R. Kelly. That's Robert Kelly, not the singer. Not even a singer, really, like a rapper. Musical artist. He's running against the 4th. And then Matt Bryant, which is kind of a throwaway detail, but he's going against the 10th best Arizona defense against the kicker, which is why everyone drafts a defense. So Brandon, on the other hand, is going against many, many bad defenses. So I really think that the Engineered Bowl is going to go to Brandon this year, and he's going to clinch with that, very likely, the Mountain Conference, simply because he's that much further ahead. He's almost 100 points ahead of me on points for. So Brandon would have to, if Brandon lost and I won, I would win the Mountain Conference. But if Brandon wins and I win, I would have to score almost 100 points more this week than Brandon to clinch the Mountain Conference. So I will predict Brandon wins this game and the Mountain Conference this year, sending the Rams packing, and very likely yours truly packing as well, and out of the wild card contention. Which, let's talk about that. Noel, what do you think about my team next week? This week, I should say, during Rivalry week.
I was going to say, I remember what is on the line in your rivalry, but I forgot the name of the actual bowl.
It is the Chipotle Bowl, because
yes,
it's our two favorite fast food restaurants. At least it was mine prior to the whole go to Chipotle, get Ebola type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had Chipotle for the first time 2 weeks ago in about a year, because it's like, hey, come to Chipotle, get some salmonella or maybe listeria, or, name a disease. The hantavirus, come and get that as well. So I've just been avoiding Chipotle, sadly, because it is my favorite fast food restaurant. So it is the Chipotle Bowl, and the loser buys the other person their fast food. So hopefully, if I lose, at least I won't get deathly ill from food poisoning. And if I win, hey, I won, food poisoning or not. So,
Mike, I'm going to say that the likelihood of you at least being exposed to food poisoning this week is very high. I would say with a few exceptions, and I'll talk about those now. I think I don't like the advantage of Tyrod Taylor over Tom Brady, because the Jets' pass defense has been bad this year. Let's just put it that way. They've been bad the whole season. They should be good, but they just haven't been. And I think Tom Brady will have a field day against them. As for Tyrod Taylor, yeah, it's Jacksonville, and they should be bad. But Jacksonville's been surprisingly somewhat decent against the pass. The problem is they've just got Blake Bortles bordering around the backfield on offense. And just, if you guys have not watched these, he's managed to throw the most odd interceptions. And it's not really his fault in recent weeks. He had a receiver kick a ball up into the air and got intercepted. Another one where the guy, I think it went off his helmet. It's bizarre shit, but it's awesome bortling, and he looks terrible this season. But then just down, Todd Gurley going against a New Orleans defense, which we've maligned as bad this season, but they've actually been surprisingly stout against the run versus, Mike Devontae Booker against Kansas City, who, as we've mentioned, is not all that good against the run on defense. Jordy Nelson against Philadelphia, we'll see. Greg Olsen, I think he's had kind of some quiet weeks. You look for him to bounce back. Des Bryant and Dak Prescott have actually kind of developed a rapport the past few weeks, so I think that projection is low at 15.9. I'd see closer to 20. Jamison Crowder, he's averaging 17.8 points a week, so I think that's and you get to face up against old Colin Kaepernick and his terrible offensive line with the Dolphins' stellar defensive line. So I like you for that reason, Mike. The only thing I'm kind of interested in, I think the projection for the Eagles' defense getting 11.5 points for Courtney this week is either astonishingly well. I think it's wrong. I think they'll either get 3 or 4 points, because maybe the Packers on offense will finally show some life and they'll go off against really kind of a Eagles defense that's been trailing off the second half of the season, or they'll just feast and put up 25 points. But either way, I don't think that'll be enough to overcome just the favorable matchups, plus just kind of, unfortunately for Courtney, just how bad some of her players have been this season. So, Mike, take your whatever pills prevent E. coli and enjoy your win.
Yes, I think the cure for E. coli is a hug and some scotch. So if I get E. coli, friends, come visit me in the hospital, bring a bottle of scotch and give me a hug, and I will be just fine if I don't die. So let's go to the next game, Jake's Protein Shakes and Castle Black Knights Watch, which I don't think we have a name for this one yet, because this is a new rivalry. Because prior to Josh entering the league, you were playing, Tyler, in the Layer Bowl, the live action interactive role-playing bowl. So
And I
we're
think
going to have
wasn't Ben's rival Zach?
Correct. In the Ass Monkey Bowl. So we're going to have to think of one right now, Noel, for Ben and Tyler until we make one more official. So this will be the interim bowl name.
This one
How
could
about
still be a Laird Bowl because Ben's because of Ben's team name.
That is true. That is true. And let's call it the Jacked Layer Bowl, because both these guys are into bodybuilding and both these guys are jacked. So the Jacked Layer Bowl. And here we go. Ben is the #1 team overall. He's on a 3-game winning streak. He's at 8-3, first in the Atlantic Conference, first in the MHCL. And he's projected to beat Tyler by 18 points, 150 to 132. Do I agree with that? I don't know if it's going to be that big, but I do think that Ben is going to win. I think that looking at Ben's team, I think that he's got the right defenses for the right people. For example, Ezekiel Elliott is running against the Washington defense. They're not very good. The Spencer Ware is running against Denver's rush defense, which is sad to say not very good. And then the Patriots defense is facing off against a horrific Jets offense. They're actually the worst offense in the league right now. The Jets,
but Fitzmagic is starting this week over whatever the fuck his name was, that guy from Baylor. So Bryce Petty. So there's that.
Oh, so maybe he'll only throw 4 interceptions instead of 5 this week. So Ben could have a huge week from the Patriots defense. Patriots are kind of a sleeper. They had a really strong start to the year, then they kind of fizzled. Now they're kind of coming back. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that defense. He is facing a very stout defense, though, in Minnesota, the game that's going to be played tomorrow with Matthew Stafford at quarterback. The Minnesota is actually the #2 ranked defense against quarterback. So that might make it a little difficult for Benjamin there. But there's just everything else. He's got the proper lineups. Where Tyler could blow up my thesis here is Ben Roethlisberger is going against the 2nd worst Indy pass defense. They're the 31st best in the league. So he's got a lot of potential upside there. Now, Roethlisberger's been struggling this year, but if he can connect, if he can make things happen, it'll be a good game for him. And especially playing on Thanksgiving, you're kind of one of the featured games, one of the 3 I think you really want to shine. And really, because for how on and off he's been, I think he's going to want to just give a giant middle finger to the world and play like crazy. Julian Edelman, as we're talking about the Jets, he should have a good game. Believe it or not, Tom Brady is questionable. He got a little dinged up in San Francisco, although it's impossible to say with Darth Belichick if he's going to be able to play or not, because they're very circumspect about what they do on their injury report. They'll say, Tom Brady's out, and then he'll start the game. Or Tom Brady's fine, and they're wheeling his corpse onto the field. So you can never tell with Darth Belichick what they're going to do. So I would expect, nonetheless, whoever's throwing to him, that Edelman to have a good game, because he's just a pretty talented player. I would expect Brady's going to play, but if the other guy, the backup, Jimmy Garoppolo, is that his name?
Yep.
No, he's not.
Garoppolo.
It is him.
Yeah.
I love him. He's going to play. Then Julian Edelman will have a diminished game, but still good nonetheless. Delaney Walker, who I love, who you've been calling the silent assassin, and I completely agree with. He's the #2 tight end. He could struggle. He's projected to get exactly what he's been averaging this week, but he's facing a better defense than he's been faced in the last couple of weeks. So I don't know if he's going to get as many points out of him as he has in the past. But his 2 flex spots in Amari Cooper and Jonathan Stewart are facing some pretty shitty defenses. So Jake's Protein Shakes has enough there that with Cooper, with Stewart, with Roethlisberger, with Edelman, those could be enough of a surprise upside to lift him above Ben. Just given the way Ben's been playing so far, I have a hard time thinking that Tyler's going to walk away with a win because Ben has just been pretty damn good. He had one big down week in week 8, and for the rest of the season, he's been pretty stellar. Now, where Tyler will kick his ass is if he has one of those great weeks, because Tyler's, if you look at his points scored by week at the bottom of the preview page, he's up and down. It looks like the stock market, up, down, up, down, up, down. And let's just go back to week 4. If these were hypothetically, if they'd been facing each other, Tyler would have won. Tyler would have won week 5. Ben would have won week 6. Ben would have won week 7. Tyler week 8. Ben week 9. Ben week 10. Ben week 11. So of the last 8 weeks, Tyler would have won 3 times. Ben would have won 5. And that informs my decision as to why I think Ben will walk away with this, but I don't think he will. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, Ben, easy pick, blah, blah, blah. All right, next. I think Tyler's going to give him a run for his money, because if Tyler has a good game, if Tyler's team is able to perform like they have in the past in those up weeks, like in week 5 and week 8 and week 10, then yeah, shit, Tyler can win, and he needs to win. Ben can lose. Ben could pull a Dave Dick move and bench his entire team and get kicked out of the league as well, and he would still make the playoffs. Tyler has to win. So Ben can afford a loss, but Tyler has to win. And so, although I think Ben's going to take this week, I think this is going to be one of those fun games to watch. So check out that one. But let's go now to, again, we don't have a name for this bowl. Let's call it the Fiance Bowl. And let's look at how Josh and Molly's team is shaping up.
When I first looked at this, I wanted to give this to Josh because I think the potential is there. What's troubles me, the more I thought about it, is with Andrew Luck out this week, which is they're playing tomorrow. Mike, without looking, can you name who will be starting at quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts?
Oh, I didn't realize it wasn't Andrew Luck.
He is out with concussion.
Sean Hill.
No. Sean Hill, I don't know where Sean Hill is anymore. Sean Hill is a backup in Minnesota. It is a former third-string Packers quarterback and Wisconsin Badger alum, Scott Tolzien.
Oh, no.
I would be surprised if anyone else who isn't a Packers fan or Wisconsin fan has heard of. So you'd think that Frank Gore would be poised possibly for a big game because they're going to feed him the ball, but at the same time, I don't think that Pittsburgh is going to buy that Tolzien is going to throw the ball. So rather than that being a plus, it could end up being a hindrance. But it could be a big game. And DeAndre Hopkins against a banged-up San Diego defense, maybe he finally has that week that he hasn't had all season. But it's just – and the only other, I think, there's 3 other upsides for Josh this week. Rashad Jennings against that bad Cleveland defense. And we saw last week, when he's healthy, they want to feed him the ball. And with Sterling Shepard on the outside, as well as Odell Beckham Jr., that creates openings for the runners. And since everyone's healthy, that could be a big game. Seattle's defense against Tampa Bay, I think that projection of 13.2 points is low because Seattle's defense is coming on, although we should be careful watching out because Earl Thomas may miss the game, which could open up some big plays in the back end, in the middle of the field. But if he plays, I think Seattle's defense is in for a big game with Jameis Winston, the young gunslinger prone to interceptions. And I think also the line for 8.4 points from Justin Tucker is low because Cincinnati's defense is not what they've been the seasons past. They'll give up a bunch of yards. And it's not that they're great in the red zone. It's that John Harbaugh is so conservative that a lot of times he'll just kind of get in the red zone, run, and kick. And that has led to some big weeks from Justin Tucker. But I think Josh has a chance this week if either Frank Gore or DeAndre Hopkins can really have a big week. But the problem is, and this is where I don't see that happening, is, well, mainly David Johnson, because absolute stud, like second best running back behind an insane Ezekiel Elliott this season. Cam Newton, I think, is poised for a bounce back week after a quiet week last week. Uh, and Molly's starting 2 players for Tampa Bay, so if they have big games, that means bad things for what the hell am I talking about? Josh, the Seahawks defense. And from there, the rest of it, I think, is kind of the projections are probably about right. But I'm going to give this one for Molly, but I can see it going for Josh. It's just that it hinges on a few things that, like everything in fantasy football does. But I think I can totally see this going for Josh, but I'm going to hedge my bets and just say that I'm pretty sure this is Molly's game to lose.
I agree. Let's go to the Doomgivers versus Rednecks Delight.
Oh, mind if I do this one? I just realized since my game's the last one, I should probably do this one.
Oh, please, go ahead.
All right. This one is an interesting one. Unfortunately, Tyler's kind of suffered some. Not Tyler. What the fuck's wrong with me? Everyone's Tyler this evening. Charlie has suffered kind of a late season string of bad luck, much as Larson suffered a early season string of bad luck. Aaron Rodgers, really, he's number one. I'm surprised to see it. Probably because Aaron Rodgers is now garbage time. Crowell, something just doesn't seem right about him. New York Giants defense has kind of been coming on. Crabtree, I think, can bounce back. Ebron is quietly solid. TJ Yeldon, meh. I think that 10.7 points is probably an aberration. But this week is just who the hell knows. Ken Fields projected to win 126.6 to 116.1, but I would imagine that Ken Field might opt to put in Phillip Rivers over a Carson Palmer, who just, as I said, it isn't the same. But and Duke Johnson, he's been sticking with him, and the upside's there with the PPR. Doug Baldwin, who has been coming on late in the season, who threw a touchdown pass. I don't know if you saw this, Mike. When that play was called, he turned to the sideline and flipped off the offensive coordinator because he didn't want to do it.
Wow, classy.
Well, his point was he wants the ball in the red zone. He wants the ball thrown to him. He doesn't want to throw the ball in the red zone. Jimmy Graham, he's come on since he came back from another injury. Odell Beckham Jr., who the fuck knows, as you said, Mike, just up, down, up, down, up, down. Darren Sproles will play, but he has, I believe, a fractured rib. And then, I hate to say it, but I think the Chiefs might have a good defensive showing against our Broncos, they've kind of floundered on offense recently. So I think this is a close one. Wait, what was the name of this matchup? Because I know these two are rivals.
This is the America Bowl.
America Bowl. All right, awesome. I don't know, honestly. Never mind. Forget everything I just said. Charlie has not put Julio Jones back into the game, who was off with a bye week last week. So I think that should turn the tide for Charlie this week and give him, as you'll talk about soon here, Mike, a much-needed win for him.
Indeed. Let's go finally to the last game, who, again, we don't have a title for this one because there's been so many changes to the playoff picture with the departure of 3 teams, legacy teams, Bronco Dave and Zach, who kind of had integral roles in the bowl week. So, Noel, what would you nominate as a name?
Because she used to at least find this funny. I'm going to go with, we can call this game the Bow Wow Wow, Woof Woof, Ha 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 Bowl.
Yes, that is exactly what it's going to be, because every time she sees the American Tail, Five Goes West, or anything even like a whisper of that, like a mouse with a hat on, which you see pretty much every day, she's like, I remember that one time Noel said, Bow Wow Wow, and he's like, yes. For those of you who are not familiar with that, that is from American Tail, Five Goes West, with Dom DeLuise's character, who's talking about what it's like to be a dog. Mind you, his character was a cat. So he's just kind of like in the beginning parts of this mind. Yeah. And he's just hearing his voice echo. I'm not nearly as good as Noel. So I'm going to let you reenact this for us. Noel, please take it away.
Woof, rough, scallion. Bow wow wow. Woof woof. Ha ha ha. Wowie wowie woof woof. Yeah, it's fantastic. We should post that into the Dan Snyder video.
Oh my god. Oh, it never gets old. Never gets old. I'm gonna on my deathbed. I'm gonna listen to this podcast, be like, "Yay, it's still funny," blah, and I'll die. So that was awesome, Noel. Thank you. Let's actually focus on the game here because this is critically important. You guys are tied for second in the Pacific Conference at 5-6 apiece. You're projected to win, Noel, 164 to 130. I like your team this week. I think there's a lot to. You need to win. You really do. And you have to, because even the way that it's that with the 5-6 and the way that everything works out, it's impossible for either of you not to make the play or to make the playoffs if you not win this week. What is going on in my brain tonight? Holy shit. Anyways, let's talk about the defensive matchups. Vanessa has a lot harder week, and her number one running back is going against the third best Chicago run defense. That's really going to hamper DeMarco Murray, not to mention he's questionable with a foot injury and did not practice today, Wednesday. So it's not that always makes them questionable when they don't practice on Wednesday. It's such a 50-50 chance that they're going to play on Sunday. So who knows? Pair that, however, with the fact that Antonio Brown is facing a pretty bad Indianapolis defense at the 20th best, and he could make up the points that DeMarco Murray might struggle to find against a fairly good defense. Travis Kelce's going against the 8th Denver defense. Man, I don't know. Denver can be hot and cold. I mean, sometimes we're fantastic. Keith Lee will pick off a touchdown, or Bradley Roby will snag one from Phillip Rivers and just run it into the end zone. Sometimes they're like, what the hell? Like, do we have no defensive line, or where's our secondary? So it's going to be very difficult to say with everything going on with the Broncos, whether or not Travis Kelce is going to have a game. However, I think with looking at both of your defensive matchups, she has a much harder go of it. Your defensive matchups, Noel, are pretty damn perfect for you, except for Tyler Eifert, who's facing the 5th best Baltimore defense. Everyone else you're facing is a bad defense. Russell Wilson's going up against Tampa Bay, 25th. Le'Veon Bell's running against Indy, 20th. Emmanuel Sanders is catching against KC's defense, 29th. Lamar Miller running against San Diego's 26th ranked defense. And Melvin Gordon running against the 24th ranked Houston defense. And then this is important because Chicago's really this bad. You pick the Titans up, which I think is a bold pick, very bold, because it's there, and you've kind of picked them up a couple times. On paper, you'd say, why the hell would I get the Titans? They're the 28th best defense. They're pretty much in the part of the defensive spectrum where you're like, no, not even, I wouldn't even consider anybody, nobody. But you have them, and it's because they're playing Chicago's really crappy offense, and I think you're going to have an opportunity to put up some points. They're averaging 9 points. They're projected to get 16, and I think that's fair because I think they're just going to run all over the Chicago Bears and sack the shit out of Cutler. So you got a good team. You got a good team. You're facing a great defensive lineup this week. I think this is your game to lose. I don't, especially with how well you performed last week, I don't think you're going to struggle at all this week. I think Vanessa's going to really have to have a lot of luck. DeMarco Murray, Antonio Brown, Dak Prescott, Travis Kelce, Terrell Pryor, arguably Cole Beasley. They're all going to have really, really good games to surpass you, is my opinion this week. So I think this one goes to you, Noel. I think your winning streak is going to be extended to 4. You're going to cut her winning streak off at 2, and you're going to perhaps take the Pacific Conference, as we'll talk about next, but more likely make a wild card slot. So unless Noel,
if I can provide you with some information here, part of the reason I picked up the Titans defense is not just because Chicago's offense is so hapless. Jay Cutler is now out the rest of the season, so that means that Matt Barkley will get the start on Sunday.
Wow.
I believe Matt Barkley has yet to throw a touchdown in the regular season. So, yeah, I'm hoping that keeps going, but who knows?
Yeah. So that's yeah. That I didn't realize Matt Barkley was the quarterback there. I thought shitty ass Cutler was going to be it, but that's even more reason to start the Titans defense. Let's wrap it up here. Now we're not going to do huddle up anymore. Just talked about shithead of the week is over. I'm going to just briefly touch on the poll, and that is, what do you think of the teams that are currently in the top 6 has the best chance of becoming the next Mile High champion? Here they are in descending order, 1 to 6. Castle Black Knights Watch, Littleton Spartans, Rednecks Delight, 5 Second Chug, Summer Drew Brees, or Lincoln's Mavericks. Go on, cast your vote if you so desire, and let's go to the playoff picture. The playoff picture is very intricate this year. As we've talked about in previous podcasts, there has been clear winners and clear losers. Like at this point, there's no 9-3 teams, which is pretty rare. There's usually a 9-2 team at this point. There's no 10-1 team, which is more rare. That doesn't happen that frequently, but it certainly happened. You had that once when you're null. With the absence of a 9-2 team, the best record belongs to Ben at 8-3, and he has secured a playoff spot. In fact, mathematically, he's the only one that's secured a playoff spot. The only people that are either in or out this week are Ben, who has made it, and Courtney and Kenfield, who are mathematically out. Even if Courtney wins by 300 points, she can't make the playoffs. So Kenfield and Courtney are eliminated already. Ben is in. That means the remaining 9 of us are competing for a spot. Let's look at how this rivalry week could play out. It's kind of complex at times, so bear with me, and I'm going to narrate the possible scenarios and then pause and ask for Noel's reflections as we so playfully do back and forth. So the teams that are winning in, meaning if they win the game, they're in the playoffs, are Charlie, Brandon, myself, Molly, and Josh. So Rednecks Delight, Littleton Spartans, Lincoln's Mavericks, 5 Second Chug, or Summer Drew Brees. Any of these teams, if they win, make the playoffs. Molly's 7-4, so she could win by a measly point and she'd be just fine. The rest of us have to win and by a pretty good, be able to put up some points too to keep each other at bay. But if we win, the Molly's the only 7-4 team. The remaining teams, Redneck, Summer Drew Brees, Littleton Spartans, and yours truly are 6-5. So we need to win, and we need to win with some points in our sales there. There's 4 other scenarios, 4 other teams that are in the playoff hunt here that I think are important to mention. Number 1, the Titletown Warriors. They are 5-6, tied for second in the Pacific Conference. What they need to do, there's 2 scenarios in which Noel can make the playoffs this year. Number 1, if both Rednecks Delight and Vanessa lose and he wins. Obviously, these next ones, the team has to win. If Noel doesn't win, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens to Vanessa or Charlie's team. He's not going to make the playoffs. So he needs to win his game. He also needs Charlie to lose and Vanessa to lose. If that happens, there's a good chance that he'll clinch the Pacific Conference because he's that much further ahead. He's over 100 points ahead on points for than Charlie. So if he has an equal record at 6-6, he will surpass Charlie as Pacific Conference champion, which is kind of funny because you were at the basement of the league for a long time, Noel. So good for you for clawing your way back here. And even with a losing record at 5-6, you still have a shot of making the playoffs. So Noel needs Charlie, Vanessa to lose, and in the absence of that, he can still make the playoffs. If yours truly, Brandon and Josh lose, he'll make the wild cards. So Noel needs to win, and if myself, Brandon, or Josh lose, then Noel's in. So it's kind of one of those intricate scenarios in which Noel could make it. Any thoughts, Noel?
Nope. Although I'll just say this is kind of a general thing here. It seemed to me, thinking back to earlier podcasts, that it looked like, there's a few teams that were running away from everybody else and the rest of us were kind of sinking away. And the fact that there's only 2 teams going into the last week of the season that are truly eliminated, I found astounding based on what we discussed earlier in podcasts. So just good on everyone for that. And it's been a fun year.
Has been a very fun year. Has been a really good year. It's been kind of certainly had its ups and downs, considering there's not a big. It's been very muted. Let's put it that way. There hasn't been the huge highs that we've had with undefeated teams, and there hasn't been the huge lows where there's been completely winless teams. So it's been very in the middle, which is kind of nice. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be balanced so that it's not determined by luck. It's more determined by skill. Now, half of fantasy is luck, so you never know. Anyway, so that's Noel's scenario. That's how Noel would get in. Vanessa has a very similar thing because she's also tied with Noel at 5-6 in the Pacific Conference. She would need Charlie to lose and Noel to lose. And at that point, she would be 6-6 with Charlie at 6-6, and she has way more points than Charlie does. She has 1571 through 11 weeks to Charlie's 1354. So Vanessa has Charlie would need to, if Charlie lost, okay, but he would also need to put up more than 200 points while he lost. So that's just not going to happen. If Charlie loses and Vanessa wins, she's going to be the Pacific Conference champion. Even if Noel wins, even if Noel gets 6-6 as well, simply because she's that much further ahead than both of you on points for. In fact, she's number 3 overall behind Ben at 1609 and Molly at 1583. So she's got a hell of a leg up with the points for, but she still needs a win. So if either Chuck or Noel lose, then she's the Pacific Conference champion, and that's an automatic bid for a playoff spot. In the absence of that, she, like Noel, would need Brandon, myself, or Josh to lose because we're the remaining 6-5 teams. If any of us lose and she wins, well, then that's great because we're tied at 6-6. She would be 6-6, and she has many more points than all of us. So she'd be able to make the playoffs in the wild card format. So Vanessa and Noel's situations are very similar, but she does have a leg up in the points for category. Anything you want to add there, Noel?
Again, apart from her fantastic points for, she's sitting at 1 point shy of 1,600 points against, which is really by far and away the highest in the league. And that is crazy. So, win, lose, or what have you, that's a great season, Vanessa. And I was just looking at this. I've been struggling at home this year at 1-3, as where Vanessa's 5-2, but she's 0-4 on the road in fantasy football. So maybe take that into consideration, fantasy gods. I'm shaking my fist right now. I don't even know why that's a thing.
Shake harder, boy. Yeah, that's for your Simpsons fans out there. Okay, the other situation would be the Rams, another 5-6 team. They have a harder road to get to because he's facing Brandon. Brandon is tied with me at number 1 in the Mountain Conference. So Brandon, if Larson wins, he would have an equal record with Brandon. Where it becomes a little bit more difficult is the fact that he's trailing Brandon by 67 points for. And in a tied record, points for will determine who wins. So I think that, so Larson has to beat Brandon and beat him by more than 66 points. And he also has to, I also have to lose as well. He has more points than I do. So if I win, I will take the Mountain Conference because then I'll be 7-5. Brandon will be 6-6. Larson will be 6-6. So he needs both Brandon and I to lose, and he needs to beat Brandon by 67 points or more. The other thing is he would need 4 teams to lose, and it's all the 6-5 teams. He would need Charlie, Vanessa. Excuse me, they're not all 6-5. Charlie, Vanessa, Noel, and Josh to all lose. If he were to do that and win, then he would be able to make a wild card slot. So Larson, with all of his problems that he's had this year, can still make it. It's just he's got a tough road to get there. If he's got to win, and he's got to win by big, and he's got to hope that a whole bunch of other teams lose. So that's it, Brandon. That's it, Larson. Hopefully you have a good week just to make it fun. But that's it for them. Do you have any thoughts on that one, Noel?
I don't, other than, once again, congratulations, Larson just on fantastic management this season that has really kept you in it, despite having to basically all of your starting running backs dying. So good job there.
Yeah, Larson's backyard is littered with the corpses of NFL running backs that he's had to bury out there this season. Finally, let's look at Tyler's team. He is bottom of the Atlantic Conference, so there's no way. It's mathematically impossible for him to win because Ben's already secured the victory of the Atlantic Conference at 8-3. Well, let me take that back. Ben has not secured the Atlantic Conference because if Molly wins, she will have an equal record. If Molly wins and Ben loses, they'll have an equal record, and Molly has almost as many points for. So it's possible Molly could win the Atlantic Conference. If she wins, Ben loses, and she were to surpass him on points for. She's only about 25 or so points behind him. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities, although I think more likely than not, Ben will still be the Atlantic Conference champion. How Tyler still has a shot here at 5-6 and at the bottom of the hardest division, the hardest conference this season is he would, not a miracle, but he would need a lot of things to go right. He would need Charlie, Vanessa, Noel, Brandon, myself, Larson, and Josh to lose to make the wild card. And now you're saying, well, wait a second, how can all of those teams lose? Two of those teams are playing each other. Four of those teams are playing each other. Noel and Vanessa and and Brandon and Larson. So it's possible. It is possible if one of those teams, if Noel wins, let's say Vanessa loses, so that's good for him. If Brandon wins and Larson loses, well, that's even better, and he wins, then he surpasses Larson at 5-6. So it is possible. It is possible, but he would need a lot of these things to go in his favor. So I think it's a long shot for Tyler this year, but at 5-6, he still is not out. He's not mathematically eliminated like Kenfield and Courtney. So he's still in the hunt, but boy, he has to have a lot go right and a lot of funky combinations for it to go right for him. So best of luck to you, Tyler. I'm not counting you out just yet, but best of luck to you. Anything, Noel?
Just going to add that I believe since Tyler has joined the league, this might be his sole, could possibly be his sole losing season. So, we've all been there. We've all been in the desert, and we've all had far worse seasons than that. So, again, another team and another manager to show mad respect for. So, no matter what happens, good job, Tyler, and all you Tylers as well. I mean, sorry, actual Tyler,
and Tyler and other Tyler, he also did well. And then there was
Tyler.
There's Homer too, and there's Homer. Yeah, Tyler's done very well. There's only of his 5 seasons, excluding this year, of the 5 seasons that he's played previously, he's made the winner's circle 3 of the times. So he's really done quite well. The 2014 season was not good for him. He had a 5-7 record then. 2013, same thing. He had a 4-8 record. But you look back beyond that, he's done quite well. He's had a where is he here? Oh, is that him? Oh, that's right. He also sucked in 2012. In 2012, he had a 2-10 record. I guess he was lifting weights at that time. So yeah, he's had some of his struggles in the past, but this is playing in the Mile High Champions League, especially with how closely knit we are, is not an easy thing. And not that Tyler has been welcomed with open arms, as Creed would say. Or with arms wide open is the thing. Or open arms, journey. I don't know.
With arms wide open. Yeah, that's that.
Thanks, Scott. So anyways, Tyler's playing in a tough competitive league, so it's certainly not an easy thing to win in this league. So at any rate, that is the playoff picture. That is the review. That is the preview. That is our podcast. Noel, is there anything else you want to add for the folks tonight?
Well, let's just say this. For those of you that are still in the playoff hunt, best of luck to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And go Broncos. Bow, wow, wow.
Thank you, Noel. And don't forget the woof, woof, Ha ha ha. And that is our podcast. Thank you so much again for joining me, Noel. I'm going to say it every time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone have a fantastic and happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe, eat a lot of turkey, get drunk, have some fun. We will talk to you next week. Have a good night.